Yeah, I've sucked at reading my entire life. I was never able to read in front of the class. I would start to panic and then I would switch the words and lose my line and start to misspell the words and it would start to panic and I sounded so freaking stupid. But after applying all the steps that I will show you in this video, nowadays I enjoy reading. I read every single day and it's pretty fun. For you to start enjoying reading, you need to first take all the friction away. Make it as easy as possible to start reading now. Then slowly you will build a habit, but the first steps are the hardest. You've heard this a million times, but you need to read something that you're passionate about. There's no going around it. Reading in school is really hard because you don't choose the books. They just give you books as homework and you just have to force yourself to read them. And there's nothing enjoyable about that. As a starter, don't even go for the best books that ever existed. They will be too hard to read and not enjoyable at all. Instead, just find books or subjects that has something inside that you really desire. The goal here is to drive yourself to read by seeking an answer that you might find in the book. This first book that you will read will be the hardest to build this new habit, so start easy. You want to enjoy reading? You won't manage that if at the end of the reading session you don't remember anything or you don't even understood anything. I love philosophy, but I would be a liar if I told you that I remember anything about reading Marcus Aurelius' book. It's great, but it's hard. Look for easy reads. You can start maybe with a comic book or even a kid's book. There's no shame in that. A bit. This will make the experience way more enjoyable at the beginning because you will manage to follow the story you're reading. Later on this video I will give you some recommendations of easy books that I've loved. In the same idea, you should definitely read fiction. As humans, our brains connect way more easily with stories. They resonate with you and it will be way easier to remember what you read. So try to avoid any books that might be overflowing with information. It will be just too much and you won't remember anything. If you want the ideas that you're reading to be understood and also stick in your brain, you should find them inside the story. To have a satisfying experience of reading, you will need a sense of progression. That's why you should read a book with shorter chapters. Sooner or later, you'll get tired of reading. And if you close your book in the middle of a chapter, next time you'll be reading, it will be harder to follow the story. So find a book that has short chapters. You will just feel more powerful when you finish the chapters because, well, it will be easier and it will be simpler to remember the story. Here's the technique to really build your habit. You need to read at least 1 page a day, but every single day. Doesn't matter if you read for an hour or you read for 1 minute. Point is to read. If you feel this weight that you need to read an entire chapter or an entire reading session, you will lose this habit. So start by just minimum a page a day. Doesn't matter if it's a short one or a long one, doesn't matter, just one. To be able to concentrate on the things that you're reading, it's easier if your mind is a bit clear. That's why I recommend to do a little meditation before you start your reading session. I know not everybody likes to meditate and you're not obliged to, but it does make it easier when you're reading to concentrate. Just do a 5 to 10 minute guided meditation from YouTube and you'll be fine for your reading session. It will just clear your mind and it will be easier to read. The time when you read is also important. I would recommend to read in the morning. The more you wait throughout the day, the more things you have in your head, the more tired you are and it's harder to concentrate. So if you start after waking up, your mind will be clearer and it will be a bit easier to read. You want to avoid all type of distractions. That's why you should use a playlist of reading music. Life is full of sounds, little cracks from the door, the car passing by, your neighbors fighting. It's chaos out there. And every little sound might break your rhythm of reading. So I recommend some noise-cancelling headphones and a reading music playlist. Not just normal music. It might work for some people, but personally it just distracts me if there's lyrics in the music, so just use some reading soundtracks. Generally it's piano, it's really calming, it helps concentrate. When you're reading a genre that has a specific vibe attached to it, like horror, you can add the soundtrack that fits it and create a whole atmosphere. It will make the experience more intense. This next step changed my whole experience with reading, and I would really recommend you to do it. You definitely need to get a Kindle. I know that books are satisfying, the paper touch, the fact that you can draw on it is really nice. But listen to me, our goal is to make it easier to read. So, of course, it's lighter so you can bring it easily to different places and it's not such a burden to bring books. More in the psychological aspect of it. For example, you can change the font size, which makes every page that you're reading shorter, so it feels less heavy to read every page. Of course, you also don't see how big the book is. And that takes away the heaviness of having to read such a long book. You're just reading the page you're in today. You can also take the page number away. You can select words and get the definition. You don't have the need of a pen to underline things, you can just select them and it will do it automatically. Overall, getting a Kindle has made my experience with reading way more easily, way more enjoyable, because I don't have to think about all the books that I have to read. I can just enjoy the page that I'm in today. With the same fact that it's easy to transport, you should definitely read while you're in the move. Reading in a boat, reading in a plane, reading in a train, reading in the bus, it doesn't matter where you're reading, but the fact that you're going from one place to the other makes it way easier to concentrate on the book. I guess you're already wasting that time, so might as well use it by doing something productive like reading. And here's the last tip I will tell you, and it took me a bit of time to really get it in my head. But you don't have to finish the book. Reading might feel like a success if only you finish a book, but the reality is it's a success as long as you're reading. Doesn't matter if you're reading one book and then the other and the other, the point is you're reading every day and you're enjoying reading. Look, it might be a bad habit, but I'm halfway in most of my books, and some of them I do finish them, but most of them I'm halfway there, and I just go with the flow. If I'm interested in economics, I'm gonna read about economics. I'm not just gonna force myself to finish the sexuality book that I was starting. So read whatever interests you in that specific moment, even if it means you don't finish a book. Reading is like any other muscle. It gets easier with time. After 3 years of trying to get this habit into my life, I can tell you now I really enjoy doing it. I read and managed to book at least 6 books in the last 3 years. It might not sound like a lot, but in my entire school career, I never finished a single book. So this is a big deal for me. Just try to keep in mind that the goal of reading is not to finish the book, but to enjoy the page you're reading now. Oh yeah, I need to recommend your books. I forgot about that. Here's a couple of books that are easy to read and really enjoyable. The Coffee at the Edge of the World is a fantastic book that is easy to read and will give you the meaning of life, more or less. Pet Sematary is fantastic if you want something that is horror and you don't have to think too much while you're reading. Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die is a fantastic book about comedy and philosophy and life and relationships. I just recommend it a lot. And finally, if you want hardcore motivation just to move your freaking ass, you can read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It's an easy read, enjoyable, and you will get motivated as f***. There you go. Let's get to reading.